dragon, as we know, is the mastermind behind the beast, paper Rome. So you could say that in the beast of Revelation 17, the dragon is the inner core of the beast. He is the power of the beast. He is the brain, the mind, everything. He is he's the one that works the beast. And then the paper Rome is the one that he rides, or he uses to push his agenda around the earth. So is that clear about this beast of Revelation 17? Again, it's red, which represents the Satan part, the dragon. They have the names of blasphemy, which represents paper Rome, and these go into this beast. You have Satan, the inner core, the mastermind, and he's riding paper Rome. Revelation 17 is mainly talking about the dragon part of the beast. It focuses mainly on the dragon part of the beast, as we'll see as we continue to study. And also, we have we see another clue who this beast is, because it says the beast that saw was and is not, and shall ascend to the bottomless pit. Who was and is not, and yet is? Who was and is not, and yet is? Satan. Satan was, and he is not, and yet is. So what do I mean by that? He was in heaven, able to be seen, because it says, before I go there, it says he shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. And then it says, when they behold him, they will wonder. So now behold means see. So it lets us know that this beast will be able to be seen. It's somebody that will be able to be seen. And we know that this beast was and was not, and yet is. So now who is this beast that was and is not and yet is, and that will be seen? Who was?
You can't see him, but he yet is. He's there.
Yeah, he was to be able to be seen in heaven. Satan, he made war with the saints. You look in Revelation 12 about that. He made war with the saints. And the dragon, it says that, he made war in heaven. He made war. He didn't make war with the saints, but he made war in heaven. And his angels fought against, the dragon fought against God's angels, and the dragon and his angels fought against the Lamb. There's war in heaven, but he was cast out to earth, and then he was not able to be seen, because he used a snake to deceive. He did not personally come in, but he used the snake as his medium to work through, and he does that still. So he is not able to be seen, but he is real. He is working now, and he will be able to be seen. That's why it says yet is. So now, on this beast, we see how many heads. How many heads are on this beast? How many heads are on this beast? There are seven heads, and 7 heads and 10 horns. Yeah, but this beast of Revelation 17. Go back to Revelation 17. The beast, it has 7 heads and 10 horns. So now, what do the 7 heads of this beast represent? So now the Bible will clearly answers this question. The Bible answers this question. What does the 10 heads of the beast represent? Let's look at Revelation 17, verse 9 through 11. What does it say? Somebody read.
And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. Verse 10. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space.
Also here, we see here that there are 7 kings. So the 7 heads represent 7 kings. The Bible answered the question right there clearly. Itself, 7 heads represent 7 kings. And then it says 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come. So now, who are these 7 kings the Bible reveals? Are 7 earthly kingdoms that the Bible reveals. So these are 7 earthly kingdoms. are these seven different kingdoms? So let's look at Nebuchadnezzar's dream of Daniel chapter 2. Nebuchadnezzar's dream of Daniel chapter 2. What do you see there? Let's look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 32 to 35. Daniel chapter 2, verse 32 to 35. Who is this beast that was not? Who are these seven kingdoms that is revealed here?
This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet of part iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth.
So see here, you have a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of brass, feet, legs of iron, feet of iron, part clay. These here are represented 5 kingdoms, and we know in the legs there's kingdoms within the feet, because it represents different kingdoms in the feet. But here you have 5 different metals, I should say, that are different sections of things, which represents kingdoms here. And so now, quick reminder before we go into who are these 5, and then it's going to go. When we look in Daniel 11, we're going to find more details about the rest that are in the feet. But these 5 that are revealed, or these 4 specifically that are revealed here. Before we begin to look at that, we need to have a quick reminder. The prophecies of Daniel are from the time of Daniel to the end of time. So let's look at Daniel 2:45. The prophecies of Daniel are from the time of Daniel to the end of time. Because what was revealed to Daniel? How or what kingdoms was he talking about? Was he talking about kingdoms that were like before Daniel, like the Syrian Empire? Could you say that it was the Syrian Empire, or was it from, or what? Let's again. What does it say?
For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure.
So Daniel, the book of Daniel, is specifically on what happened from Daniel's time, who was in power in Daniel's time? Who was in power in Babylon? Was in power from Babylon to hereafter, and who was hereafter? Jesus Christ's kingdom, all the way to the last kingdom, who is Jesus Christ, who will reign forever. So that is so when we look at this prophecy, we must keep that in mind. So we cannot go to Assyria or any other kingdom before Babylon and try to say that fits at the head of gold, because the Bible, first of all, reveals who's the head of gold very clearly, but we need to make sure we keep that in mind so we don't make mistakes like that.
Yeah, and in verse 38, the last part, when we know that Daniel's speaking to Nebuchadnezzar, if you read the whole context, but he's told Nebuchadnezzar, thou art this head of gold. And Nebuchadnezzar was king of Babylon, and that's where the vision started with. That head of gold was the top.
So
all the way to God.
And it went down into successive, so you can't go from Babylon being head of gold into silver, then you go up and jump and say, oh, that's Egypt. They go down. It must go in a downward
Because after
flow.
thee shall rise.
Yeah, after thee. Yes. So now, who is that to go? Carney just mentioned it. In verse 38, it says, 38. I mean, 30. Well, I'm gonna read 36, 37, and 38. It says in the dream, this is a dream, and we will tell you the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou art, O king, a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And whosoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, the fowls of the air of heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and have made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So it says clearly, thou art this head of gold. So Babylon's a head of gold. Now, who is the rest of this image? Let's look at verse 39. What does it say? Somebody can read this. Verse 39.
And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth.
All right, so now we see another kingdom that's inferior, and then there's another kingdom that rules over all the earth. So now, Daniel, as you look at the book of Daniel, it says something and then repeats it, enlarges it, and he gives more details about this event. So like this, that dream that Daniel had, that Nebuchadnezzar had, is given more detail in beasts. It talks about these 4 beasts that rise out of the sea. So you have more details that are given there. And even of that, you have in Daniel chapter 8, more details are given about those 4 beasts, who these 4 beasts are. So now we look at Daniel chapter 8, it gives us answer who these 2 other metals are. The silver, and chest of arms of silver and belly that is of brass are. It says it straight out, clearly. So nobody can have any questions on this. So the first 3, it says it straight out. What does it say in Daniel 8, verse 20 and 21. What does it say?
The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia.
All right, so there you have the rams which thou sawest having 2 horns. So this time, instead of having chest and arms of silver, has 2 horns on it. Yeah, the 2 represent 2 arms. And it said clearly that is Medo-Persia. Now, who is a belly and dice of brass? Who is a belly and dice of brass? Verse 21. Somebody can read it. Verse 21.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Sabbath. So the goat, which represented the belly and thighs of brass, because after the chest and arm of silver was the belly and thighs of brass. It says clearly that this goat, who represented the belly and thighs of brass, was Greece. It says that this king, that is Greece, is the king of Greece. All right, so that's very clear. It mentioned it very clear. And we know in history, and the Bible reveals that after Greece, who rose after Greece?
Rome.
Because, 4 kings, it's split off in 4 kings. And because it says now that being broken, verse 22, whereas 4 stood up and 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in its power. And then it says in verse 23, in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, understanding their sentences, shall stand up. So then you have after those 4 kingdoms, we went through the history during the sermon about these 4 kings and how they broke up, and Rome took over. They were Rome. Rome took over that area, and Rome was the next kingdom. And we see here that in Daniel 8, Daniel 2, we see that it says in Daniel 2 verse 40, it's talking about the fourth kingdom, who came up after Greece, which we know is Rome, but we must see. Let's look at more about it. It says, "And fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and to do with all things, as iron breaketh all things, it shall break in pieces and bruise." And who Rome was a iron nation who broke in pieces and bruised. And also we know who pieces, in particular, who they stand up against. Yeah, but who did pagan Rome? Who did pagan Rome, stand against? The prince. They stood up the prince. They were an iron nation. They stood up against the prince of princes, Jesus. And that is given in Revelation in Daniel 11. And we know clearly that it was Rome, the Jews through Rome nailed Christ to the cross. So the fourth kingdom is represented as Rome. Fourth kingdom, who was the one who deceived Rome into giving them the kingdom? Who deceived them in making and giving them the kingdom? Who took the kingdom away from Rome by deceit?
The blasphemous little horn.
Yeah, the blasphemous little horn. We
also
know
known as Papal Rome.
We learned about the little horn, and we know much about. We should know much about that. So I don't have that much time to go in details about that. But it was Papal Rome. So Papal Rome was the sixth kingdom. Wait, it was the fifth kingdom. We have in review, we have Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, Rome, and Papal Rome. That is the five kingdoms that is revealed here. And then in Daniel 11, let's look at Daniel 11, 36 and 37. We have even more details of what's happening in the feet of the image, of the dream of Daniel 2. What's happening in those feet? Let's look at Daniel 11, 36 and 37. It gives us more details, and it introduces another kingdom, a sixth kingdom.
"And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall magnify himself above all."
All right, so he desires no God. And it says, nor the desire of woman, which woman represents church and Bible prophecy. So no church, no God. He is atheist. Then that's what no God is. He's atheist. And so where did the atheistic belief come from? In France, they brought up atheism, and they put up the goddess of reason. And they rejected not only Papal Rome, but all religion. And we know that this belief from France grew into USSR, the communism USSR, who was atheistic and who also hated God. And it was a very powerful nation. So here we have the sixth kingdom, who is represented as the atheistic communist USSR, who grew from France. All right, so then at the end of Daniel 11, we see another kingdom that is revealed, and he is taking vengeance upon this king that is the king that's atheistic king that rose up. He is taking vengeance on him, because you see here in let's look at verse 40 or 45. What does it say? This beast, this kingdom, this king does. Because it says, what does it say?
And at that time, wait, let me read that again. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over.
All right, you can pause right there for now. We see that the king of the south pushed at this king of the north, and he did something that obviously was also, I mean, he ticked them off because he comes as a whirlwind. Not saying he comes, with all these chariots and horsemen, but he comes as the whirlwind. So his response is as a whirlwind that takes the kingdom of the south down quickly. All right, keep on reading now. And it's at the end of time that this is happening. So now keep on reading in verse 41 through 45.
He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
And chapters were added by translators. Originally, there was not chapters in the Bible. So read verse 1 of Revelation 12. What happens after this? It's like kind of successive. What happens after this? Read Daniel 12, not Revelation, Daniel 12, 1.
And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book.
So thank you. Yeah, then you know about the resurrection. So now we have here that we know clearly that this is at the end of time, right before the time of trouble. So here's a question: who is revealed is going to reign to the time of trouble? Or because this is the time of trouble that is not since any where was upon the earth. Paper Rome. Paper Rome was that. Is that
because it reveals that his deadly wound was healed, so he comes again
at the end of
time. So he Paper Rome. He was killed by the atheism. France. He was killed and he received the deadly wound, and when he gets power again, he comes and takes vengeance on the king of the south, and he takes down the king of the south, who is revealed as the USSR, the communistic atheistic nation. He takes takes the king of the south down, and he is known as the king of the north. And to further know that this is Paper Rome, it says, tidings of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. So who is upset about some tidings that is being sent? Paper Rome. And what tidings is he upset about? What tidings is the papacy upset about that is preached? The everlasting gospel, the three angels' message. He hates Bible truth because it exposes him. The call to come out of her, my people. Fourth angel's message.
And also in Daniel, when it talks about Paper Rome, and I think it's in Daniel chapter 8. It says that he cast down the truth to the ground.
Yeah, so he hates truth. He doesn't like truth. So when these tidings come to him, he goes and attack it because he's trouble. And then also we see that he stretches forth his hands upon the countries. So now what does the hand represent that he stretches forth upon the countries? Let's look at 1 Chronicles 29, verse 12. 1 Chronicles 29, verse 12. 1 Chronicles 29, verse 12. What does it say?
Both riches and honor come from thee, and thou reignest over all. And in thy hand is power and might. And in thy hand it is to make and to give strength unto all.
So we know that in God's hands is all things, and he has all power. But we see that paper Rome, he says, and he shall stretch forth his hand. He's blasphemous. He stretched forth his hands upon the countries. His hands represent power. And so he stretched forth his power over all the countries. So meaning that he will have power over the countries. So now, who is prophesied to have power over the countries of the earth? Who is prophesied to have power over the countries? Let's look at Revelation 13, 7 through 8. 7 and 8. Revelation 13. Who is prophesied about power over the nations? Who's going to put their hand over the nations?
Revelation, what is it?
7 and 8. Revelation 13, 7 and 8.
And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given unto him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and on the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world.
Thank you.
It's interesting. I just thought about when I was reading this about how when before Pilate, and he said, "You have no power except I give it to you." Mm-hmm. So here, the Lord is allowing this power to so he's only given him in other mean power. It's only going to go but so far.
And it says that he shall come to his end and none shall help him.
Right.
So he's going to come to the end. God's going to end his power. But we know that paper Rome is going to God's going to allow paper Rome to exert his authority over all the earth, his power. He's going to stretch forth his hand.
The character of Satan, because people need to see exactly what his character is like. His character needs to be fully revealed.
Mm-hmm. So so he's going to stretch forth his hand and have control over the earth. And paper Rome is that he was prophesied to do that. You have a comment or question? All right. So now, paper Rome is that seventh kingdom that was revealed in Daniel 11. Is that clear? Do you need more evidence, or is that clear? That paper Rome?
That's pretty clear.
Everybody's clear on that.
They're the fifth kingdom, and they come back after their deadly wound is sealed as the seventh kingdom at the end of time. For a short period of time.
For a short period of time, yes. All right, so now we have the eighth. Because let's look at Revelation 17, verse 12. 11, 12.
And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seventh, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
Amen. So we see paper Rome's the seventh empire, or the seventh kingdom. So now, who is this eighth kingdom or beast? So, or before that, we get there. We learn. So the seven kingdoms is from Babylon to paper Rome at the last time. Those are the seven kingdoms that are the seven heads that is revealed. So now we have another beast that is the eighth.
And like what you were speaking before, he's of the seven.
Yeah,
who was of paper Rome 7?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So he's the eighth, but it says here that he is of the seventh. So he has a very close connection between the seventh. And so now, why does Revelation, as we stated earlier, why does Revelation put the connection between the beast, the paper Rome and Satan? Why? Because you have, remember, the dragon, the beast that had the red on it, with the names of blasphemy. Why does Revelation have that connection or show that connection between papal Rome and Satan as the worker behind papal Rome? Why does it with that?
Because Satan is Satan is of the beast. The beast is of Satan. Let's put it like that. The beast, papal Rome, is of Satan, because he himself is papal Rome. The man of sin is the son of perdition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the son of perdition is his father is
very
perdition.
Nice. Yeah, that was a very good point. He is a son. He is a son of perdition. So Satan births him. Basically, he is the father of papal Rome. Satan's the father of papal Rome, and you see how the working in Revelation 17 in this beast that's red and also names of blasphemy, showing the connection between Satan and the dragon. So Satan is working all behind this. But now you have this one. He is the 8th, but it's of the 7th. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, Revelation 17, you see more clearly that it's focusing on the Satan part of this beast, especially as it gets down to this part of Revelation, verse 11 and 12, as it gets down to this area. So this beast that was and is not is talking about.
And Carlene pointed out another point here about the perdition is also, because remember, papal Rome is known as the son of perdition, and in that verse it actually mentions the perdition, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and out of the 7th and of the 7th, and goeth into perdition.
Wow, yeah, another good point there. So,
what are you gonna say?
So this,
he's gonna be destroyed. I was gonna say he's gonna be destroyed.
Yeah, so this
is gonna be destroyed.
Yeah, so this kingdom, so this 8th, it is represented as the dragon.
So,
who is Satan.
So since he's the father of perdition and he goes to perdition, the father of perdition is going to be destroyed by God, who is the overconqueror. He always wins.
The father and the son of perdition. Yeah. So we have this. So this, he goes into perdition, and we know that as all the evidence, this dragon, or this beast, is a dragon, represents Satan, and how he rule for a short time upon the earth. It says, but in last part 12, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So now, so we see here that there will be a short time rule. 1 hour mean or reveal. What is 1 hour? One day in Bible prophecy equals 1 year. 1 year. 1 day equals a year. Bible prophecy. 1 hour is 1/24th of a day, and 1/24th of a day of 360 equals 15 days. Or you can do 360 divided by 1/24 of a day, and it equals 15 days. Now, we already did a prophetic, because it's written symbolic language, so you have to add it up like that. You have to do the math and convert it into 15 days. But we already did the conversion of 15 days. So now some people assume that, oh, it's 15 days, so then you add a year. But we can't do that because we already added. We already did the conversion to 15 days. So here we have 15 days. That's how long your rule. We can't do any more conversion to 15 days. So the beast will reign 15 days. There are 7 earthly kingdoms, and then the 8th is of the 7th, who is the Satan, the dragon part of who's the worker behind the beast, and he will rule. And it says here in Great Controversy, page 624, paragraph 2, as a crowning act and a great drama deception, Satan himself will impersonate Christ. And going down, right in the middle of the paragraph almost. It says, the shout of triumph rings out upon the air. Christ has come, Christ has come. The people prostrate themselves in adoration before him, while he lifts up his hands and pronounces a blessing upon them, as Christ blessed his disciples when he was upon the earth. So he will become, be seen. He will be able to be seen. And he will rule, as the Bible says, for 1 hour. Or he'll be the visible ruler. Because before he's working things through the beast. But this time, he'll be able to come himself and rule, being visibly seen as their false Christ. So now, what else would these beasts do? Real quick, it says in Revelation 17, verse 3, I'll read for 13, I'll read for time's sake. These have one mind and shall give their power to strength to the beast. This applies to this beast, of this dragon part of the beast, but also applies it applies to Papal Rome and how the nation will give their power to Papal Rome, but they will submit their power to the beast, the dragon part of the beast, when he is visibly to be seen. And then it also says in verse 14, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called, chosen, faithful. And then we're going to look at verse 16, 17, and it says, the 10 horns thou sawest upon the beast are 10 kings, it says, the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, he shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate, and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God put in their hearts to feel his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God be fulfilled. And also going back to the area where it talks about these 10 kings, it says, and we look at the 10 kings. In verse 12, it says the 10 horns with us also 10 kings. We know that there'll be. We do not know exactly who those 10 kings are now. We don't know exactly who these are now, but we know that 10 kings will rule with Satan for 1 hour. All right. So now, any question or comments on that now?
Yeah, and then we in verse 14, when you read about the Lamb shall overcome them, they shall make war with the Lamb, but the Lamb shall overcome them. So Satan is always a loser.
Amen. Is that clear? I mean, is that clear about the 8th beast, the 8th kingdom? Amen.
Amen.
So let's have prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for all your forgiveness, understanding of your word about the 7 kingdoms, and please continue to teach us. Please bless the rest of the service, and in Jesus' name, amen. We will end this portion of Bible study, and we will be back in a few minutes doing Sabbath service.